This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association. Your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, from Commodity Classic 2024 in Houston, Texas. Dustin Hoffman here on Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Coming up a little later on in the program, we are going to have some more content from you for the show, and we are going to get that to you later on in the program. But first, we're going to go ahead and take a look at those markets as we hear from Kaden Sweeney of agmarket.net. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. As we get going here on Ag Matters PM, looking at the markets right now, Kaden Sweeney, agmarket.net in person instead of over the screen. Great to have you on here today.
It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what we saw out of that grain trade here today.
Yeah, really, if you look at the close, pretty quiet overall. It did start out that way. Bean market started out 18 cents lower this morning at the open. Corn lower as well. Corn wound up closing higher, so we like that. Continuing to see good momentum there in the corn market. I do kind of feel like we got a temporary bottom in there. Looking good here in the next, hopefully, 30, 45 days. Bean market closed lower, about 5.5, but it does not have the momentum the corn market has, but we certainly take that over how we opened today.
So, starting with the corn part of it, Kaden, what is it that's giving it that kind of that quiet boost that we've been seeing? I mean, it's been great, don't get me wrong, but it's not like explosive, but it's just kind of steadily going up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we finally started stemming the tide a bit as far as sellers just pounding the thing. I think you probably could look to the end of the month, kind of gave the funds a little bit of a reason to lighten up, certainly in short position. And then, Monday's trade, we traded quite a bit lower than we had, made new lows, and then closed higher than we had on Friday. That's a good reversal pattern. We've seen good confirmation off of that, so now you start to see the funds and the money more confident coming in and buying this thing going forward.
All right, so then on the soybean side, what has been pressuring it lately?
Yeah, we just continue to see harvest pressure out of Brazil, really. We're still waiting to see what that crop amounts to, but similar to us, harvest pressure there exists when that glut is hitting the market. Continues to weigh on it, especially they're basically drop shipping beans to China. China's not buying too much from us. Export sales today continue to be pretty low. So, bean market, similar to corn, waiting for a catalyst, waiting for a reason to go. It's kind of pretended like it just hasn't had the follow through the corn has.
All right, so switching over to the livestock side of things, cattle, let's start there. What do we see going on there?
Yeah, just look at my numbers here. Cattle lower on the day. I know feeders were down like $3 early, but we're only going to close down to $1.40, so we like to see that. That 20-day moving average has been pretty good support. That's what we went and checked today, closed back above it. Live cattle similar, went and checked it today, closing above it. So they're both going to close red today, but I think you can feel pretty decent. We're down, at one point we're down about $7 on the week on feeders. I think you can feel decent. That setback has kind of stemmed the tide now. I think, long-term supply is still looking good there from a long perspective. I think you can continue to see buyers come back into this thing now.
All right, and then moving over to hogs, what do we see there?
Hogs continuing to be strong, up 63 cents today. It feels a little bit heavy to me, but there's nothing chart-wise that says you need to be getting out of it. So I guess, if I'm a hog producer, I'm probably going to be looking at some short-term puts, certainly. We just had a really strong run the last 2 weeks, and it's kind of leveled out here. It still feels a little bit heavy to me, up here $86, $87 on the April, but I do think, again, the charts haven't said any reason to really see it rolling over yet, so I guess a little bit of patience there and a put off from the goal.
All right, so folks want to, talk to you guys at agmarket.net, just like always, where's the best place for them to get started?
Yeah, just go to our website, agmarket.net. You can reach myself, anyone from our team there. If you're down here at Houston, stop by the booth. We're giving away a shotgun. We're not giving it away here. The way the market's been, we didn't want to trust anybody with it, so we'll ship it to you. But go to our website. You can reach anybody that you need from there.
All right, Kaden Sweeney, agmarket.net. We're going to send it back to the studios for the closing numbers from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen.
March corn up 2.5 at 4.15 3/4. March soybeans down 5 3/4 at 11.28 1/4. March soybean meal up to even at 3.33.30. March soybean oil went unchanged at 44.66. Chicago wheat up 6.5 at 5.77 1/2. Kansas City hard red wheat up 7 1/4 at 6.02 3/4. Minneapolis spring wheat up 12 3/4 at 6.64 1/2. March oats up 2.5 at 377.5. On the Merc, April live cattle down 77 at 185.35. March feeders down 60 at 249 even. April lean hogs up 62 at 86.62. April pork cutout went unchanged at 93.30. And March Class 3 milk down 26 cents at 16.98.
And that's been a check of the Ag Market Recap. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association, powered by the Soy Checkoff. And when we come back, we'll bring you some content from Ag Matters PM at the Commodity Classic Show here in Houston, Texas. Stay with us.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Well, as we get closer and closer to the planting season in Iowa, of course, fertilizer is one of the things that we are focusing on, and its availability, and of course what the input costs are going to be, especially as we look at markets that are not quite as high as they've been in the past. Had a chance to catch up with Josh Linville of StoneX. He is their fertilizer guru, and he kind of gave us an update as to what we can expect. Well, you put out some interesting information just last week about, when we think about fertilizer, obviously it's a big umbrella, but as we're getting ready to go, especially in the Midwest, with it being warmer for the most part, except for yesterday, we're starting to see more anhydrous think about being put on, things like that. What are farmers needing to know here about that 2024 application?
They need to understand that logistically speaking, we're not ready yet. This early start to spring was tough. We talked a lot about coming out of last fall cycle. We ran clear up until the middle of December. It was a fantastic run. And we emptied the system for anhydrous, phosphate, and potash. All three of these were great runs. Farmers did a great job covering a lot of ground, but that meant we ended empty. And we talked a lot about how, hey, if we start normally middle of March, that's only a 90-day period to really get this thing refilled and get restocked for round 2. The problem is we didn't get 90, we got 60. I know around our home there in northwest Missouri, I've seen several weeks, I've seen spreaders go into the field. Toolbars are being pulled along fields. This thing is hitting already, and farmers are very, very quickly finding out product just isn't as readily available as what they thought it was going to be. So I think that's going to be the name of the game for the rest of the spring, presuming Mother Nature doesn't throw us into the curveball. I know I just came from Orlando, it was 80s, it was blue sky, and my family's like, yeah, we were 70s, and then we were 20s and snowing within a matter of hours. So that might slow things down a little bit.
But of course, the one thing to think about is also, supply. Let's start with supply. I mean, obviously, with things going on in the Red Sea, things going on in the Mediterranean, and there, obviously, the geopolitical situation is making it a mess to get supplies and get us resupplied at this point.
Yeah, that's the problem. The biggest thing is the Red Sea, and that's one that's actually being impacted. Just here recently, in the last couple of weeks, there was actually a fertilizer vessel coming from Saudi Arabia that was attacked, and it started to sink. Their crew had to abandon ship. So it shows that, hey, every ship that goes through that channel is in danger. And now you're starting to see more vessels. They had the option of going south around Africa. Unfortunately, it adds a couple more weeks of sail time from the Middle East. It adds more freight rate, but at least we can move. The scarier thing, this hasn't happened, but something we're watching, is the Persian Gulf. If you go back, if you were around for the Gulf War, the big talk was, well, oil tankers can't get through there. It's dangerous. They might be attacked. Iraq was a little sliver of land on the north side of the Persian Gulf. Iran commands the entire eastern seaboard. So you can see very quickly of just how quickly they could impact those shipments. A very large percentage of global exports come from that little piece of land. So if that starts to become a storyline, nitrogen prices could get out of hand very, very quickly.
Now, going back now to the weather side of it, obviously this has not been a normal winter. I mean, if you're outside, it hasn't been bad. But as far as the ground hasn't frozen in parts of the Midwest where we're used to happening, now it is a little warmer, but we're still not up to those magic numbers in the 50s and 55s. I mean, are guys jumping the gun a little too early to be thinking about putting anhydrous and stuff on?
I'd say if they put some treatment in there with it, I think they'll be okay. That has been a conversation point with a few folks saying, listen, we're a little bit worried under the right conditions. You could lose this just the same as we worry about going too soon in the fall. I think everybody's taking a fairly rational approach to it. They're taking the steps to make sure that isn't an issue, but it is a conversation piece.
And of course, without having that hard freeze, because in fact, we saw cold temperatures in Iowa. We had 2 feet of snow on top of the ground, so it never really got too deep into the below freezing. For those that fall applied, is there anything they should be watching for that we didn't get a normal freeze, that maybe things aren't a normal cycle?
I think that's something they need to rely on their local retailer. I'm not going to act like I know every soil, every piece of ground in the countryside. Your retailer does. That's a conversation to have with those folks. That's why they're there. That's the expertise that they give that farmer to sit there and talk about it and say, you know what, I hadn't really thought about that, but what does the lack of freeze-thaw cycles mean for me? They can talk about it boots on the ground with you.
And so getting back also then to the resupply issue. Obviously, with the drought, we've seen slow shipping up to Mississippi and weather affecting things just as much as geopolitical. And of course, the Corn Belt isn't quite ready yet, but it's going to start rolling. And when it does, it's going to be using a lot of supply fast. How much of a damper could this put people on, especially if they're waiting for that spring application and all of a sudden the weather's ready to go, but they don't have the supplies to go?
Well, fortunately, the river system is actually in much better shape than what it was. But I do want to caution everybody, we are not out of the weeds. One of the big things that helped us last spring, because we were incredibly low water levels going through winter, the biggest thing that helped us, northern snowpack. They melted, they sent it down the water channels, and all of a sudden everybody was okay. It got back to green, everybody was able to flow normally. We don't have that this year. The northern plains have been complaining about the lack of ice on the water. They can't ice fish. The lack of snow, I can't go snowmobiling or doing anything like that. We aren't going to have that surge coming from the north, so we're going to be more reliant on just-in-time rain events, moisture events. It doesn't mean we're going to have a problem, but it's not a story that's gone away yet.
Okay. Anything else our Iowa farmers really need to think about as they're getting ready the next couple of weeks to get going?
The biggest thing I can press is continue talking to your retailer. I cannot stress it enough with the way that things are, the early start to spring, the emptying of last fall, the world events that are going on. It is imperative to talk to your retailer, let them know what you need, when you need it. It doesn't mean you have to pull the trigger to purchase this stuff, but the more that they know, the more they can plan, the more of a chance of success we're going to have this spring.
All right, well, Josh, if folks want to get information, you know, you have that weekly blast on the fertilizer, how do they get in touch and get that email sent to them?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a media thing we put out to keep you guys informed, but I will say I'm on Twitter. I try and put something out every day. You can find me at J. Linville Fert. We put out a monthly newsletter. You can Google StoneX Farmer Fertilizer Newsletter. Otherwise, go to our website, stonex.com, and you can find me there, email me, and I travel quite a bit, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
All right, Josh, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
And that's been Josh Linville of StoneX here from Commodity Classic in Houston, Texas. And of course, we want to thank everybody for taking the chance to join us here today. And that has been our program. You can find all our content at iowaagnet.com, as well as on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. And from Houston, Texas, at the Commodity Classic, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Mark Magnuson, Andy Peterson, and Riley Smith back at the studios in Des Moines, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.